好，歡迎收睇住家男人啦！依家咧有我 Wingo 同埋阿文西喺即係用聲音同大家旁述嘅。咁阿文西究竟依家發生咩事呢？
冇錯啦，大家早晨啊！今日就星期五朝頭早啊，咁啊正常嚟講就冇大家早晨嘅，咁但係而家 Wingo 喺現場呢，就係喺 Surrey 嚟嘅，咁係今日係一個咩活動呢？就係保守黨嘅黨魁 Poilievre 博勵治，佢就喺呢度舉行一個記者會，就係講關於勒索嘅呢件事。咁呢個係咩地方呢？其實就係喺 Surrey 一個3月份嘅時候連續2次嘅槍擊案嘅勒索，都係呢間鋪頭嗰度嘅。咁其實就好明顯啦，博勵治就係想睇呢個位呢，去講關於佢對於而家呢個勒索事件嘅關注啦。如果大家唔係太清楚嘅話呢，其實喺近年嚟呢，勒索呢樣嘢喺加拿大或者甚至特別是喺溫哥華嘅 Surrey 啦、多倫多大多地區嘅 Brampton 呢，亦都係甚至 Edmonton 啊，亦都越嚟越多啲勒索事件嘅。咁其實喺2025年啦，全年有132單啦，49單係有槍擊嘅，係超過74個嘅呢個受害人嘅。咁但係呢，呢個2025啫喎，2026嘅第1月份呢，已經有34單啦，頭19日。咁你諗下，其實喺1月份嘅時候已經等於舊年全年嘅1/4咁滯。咁所以變咗，即係警察都預計啦，可能今年2026全年有600單。咁你大家記住，舊年係132喎。咁所以喺個咁增長得咁快嘅情況之下啦，咁所以亦都我相信博勵治係今日想喺呢個 Surrey 呢一個嘅連續2單嘅槍擊案嘅一個現場做一個咁嘅記者會，我諗佢都有一定嘅意味啊，即係佢都強調去打擊罪案啦。咁我見阿 Wingo 今日都好早到咗現場係嘛？
係啊，因為我要試下呢度嗰個 data network，即係可唔可以做到 live stream，咁先決定係做今日嘅 live stream 嘅咁樣。咁我就所以就早啲到啦。
係啦，咁其實即係如果大家有跟開 CanMen 嘅時候，成個禮拜好明顯博勵治亦都 keep 住都喺溫哥華嘅。咁啊，其實尋日定前日，應該前日啦。其實阿 Mark Carney 亦都係喺溫哥華嘅。咁亦都係講緊關於經濟啦。咁但係 Poilievre 就講關於私人產權同埋今日呢個罪案嘅。咁啊，亦都俾多少少資訊俾大家啦。即係頭先亦都講咗，由2025年132單去到今年，可能2026會 expect 去增加，大幅增加去到600咧。呢個數字之外呢，其實即係到底政府係做啲乜嘢呢？咁其實而家即係Mark Carney 政府呢，佢就話要請多1000個 CBSA 嘅 officer 啦，嘗試去打擊罪案啦，亦都係嘗試去修訂個刑事法啦。即係佢有好多唔同嘅 reform，甚至gun control啦，收翻一啲槍械啦，嘗試做少槍械管制啦。即係亦都係有好多唔同嘅一啲咁樣嘅全方位嘅措施嘅。咁但係有幾有成效呢？咁亦都係一個疑問。咁似乎大家見到嘅就係近年嚟呢個增長係好主要集中喺呢個 Surrey 啦，亦都喺 Brampton 啦，亦都係 Edmonton 啦。呢啲似乎比較集中係一啲南亞人士聚居嘅區域㗎。咁所以到底會唔會係同我哋個移民制度有啲關係呢？咁其實我相信即係大家都值得去探討嘅。咁啊，而家就 Poilievre 佢自己作為保守黨，佢個綱領咧就主要強調係罰則嘅。咁佢曾經喺競選嘅時候已經講過啦，就有個叫 Three Strike Sentencing Law，即係如果你犯重要嘅罪案3次，咁啊最少要判10年啊，甚至終身嘅。咁啊冇得保釋啦，冇得話咩赦免啊啲咁樣嘅嘢啦。咁所以亦都係比較強調係刑罰嗰方面嘅。咁同埋亦都強調係 jail no bail 啦，即係亦都話冇理由捉完翻嚟又放佢保釋㗎咁樣。咁因為而家有時見到新聞啦，即係可能喺一啲罪案發生之後，亦都係似乎比較容易令到啲疑犯係可以保釋走嘅。咁跟住亦都前嗰批有單新聞就係話有個罪犯佢係 ILCC 用咗好多年嘅時間，亦都未能夠取消佢嘅國籍，就算佢已經判咗一個係有罪嘅情況。咁所以變咗即係我相信博勵治即係喺呢一方面亦都想作為一個 佢嘅保守黨嘅重新多一次個綱領咯，即係佢到底 Mark Carney 政府而家自由黨政府喺呢一年嘅施政上面，特別是喺治安啊、公共安全方面，到底有幾有成效呢？咁樣我諗睇數據已經好清楚啦。咁就即係話時話阿 Wingo，你呢個禮拜都不停係咁跟住阿 Poilievre 喎。
琴日啦，同埋今日啦，兩日啦。咁但係早前咧就保守黨都另外Andrew Scheer 咧都有個係記者會嘅，咁就係琴日阿 Poilievre 咧就係講有關於呢個土地呢個 protect 呢個 property right 呢個問題啦。咁其實 Andrew Scheer 咧都係同一個topic 嘅。咁但係咧，只不過就星期二嗰次咧，就係應該係保守黨同各界由相關人士開完會之後咧，就開個記者招待會，跟住就琴日咧就阿 Poilievre 咧，即係佢係我哋依家佢哋嚟到啦。好，
我哋交翻俾現場大家聽一聽阿博勵治先。
好。
Good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Sukhman Gill. I'm the Member of Parliament from Abbotsford, South Langley, and I'm proud to be here joining all of you. And today, joining me on my left side is Taco Van Popta from Langley Township, Fraser Heights. Today, I have the great honor of introducing Pierre Poilievre, the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition and the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Pierre Poilievre grew up in Alberta as an adopted son of 2 school teachers. He lives in Ottawa with his wife, Anita, and their children, Valentina and Cruz. As a member of Parliament and a former minister, he helped the previous Conservative government cut taxes, balance budgets, deliver affordable homes, and crack down on crime and corruption. He shepherded the Accountability Act through the House of Commons, protecting taxpayers from waste, fraud, and corruption. When he was housing minister, the average home cost around $450,000 and an average 1-bedroom rent was just $970. People could afford homes in a safe neighborhood and good food on the table. As the vice chair of the Commons Finance Committee, he was the first major voice in Parliament that warned against massive money printing deficits that would lead to inflation, while Mark Carney wrongly predicted that prices would go down. Pierre also led the charge on the carbon tax, toughening laws to fight crime, banning drugs, and unlocking resources. The Liberals who demonized him for these principal stands have now all agreed that he was right and agree with him. In the most recent election, he got the most votes of any Conservative leader in our history and the largest share of votes since 1998, adding 2.5 million more votes and 25 more seats since the prior election, with all major gains among youth and working class people. But he's only begun. After the Liberals doubled housing costs, inflated food prices, unleashed crime and chaos on our streets, Pierre is fighting back. His purpose is a Canada with a strong take-home pay, safe streets, and borders with self-reliant purpose in Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Leader of the Opposition and the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Thanks, Sukhman. Thank you very much to the great Sukhman Gill, a farmer, small businessman, proud Canadian, hard worker, a member of our team. And yes, if you don't mind, I'll give that to you there. And of course, we have Taco Van Popta, my lawyer, who is also the lawyer of every British Columbian who wants to defend their property. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. 2,400% increase in extortion in Surrey since Mark Carney became Prime Minister. Let that sink in. 2,400% increase in extortion in Surrey since Mark Carney became Prime Minister. But don't worry. When he came here, he went to White Rock and handed out bagels and donuts and promised to paint the pier during a nice walk on the beach. Well, behind me, Nirwan, this business behind me, was actually shot. There are bullet holes that you can see if you look closely enough at this exact location. But that's okay. Mark Carney's having a nice walk on the beach. Isn't that really symbolic of the grand illusion of Mark Carney? Everything looks wonderful on the beach while he's walking around handing out donuts, while communities are being terrorized by crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, where people can't afford to live, eat, heat, and house themselves. That is the reality. A tiny group of Liberal insiders are doing better than ever before, stuffing their face with tax dollars, making money off of influence and power brokerage, while the hardworking people who build the country in places like Surrey suffer under disastrous, costly, and dangerous Liberal policies, all of which Mark Carney has either kept in place or made worse still. What's most tragic is that life was not always like this in Canada. We had a promise in this country. I remember visiting Surrey as a small boy on a road trip with my mother, and it was a time of great promise. My parents taught me that anyone from anywhere could achieve anything, that hard work would get you affordable food, fuel, and homes, that you could own a house, live on a safe street, raise a family, buy affordable goods, live in security, and retire with peace of mind. But after 11 years of Liberal government, that promise is broken. The cost of homes, food, and fuel have skyrocketed. Crime is out of control. Our immigration system is broken and getting worse. And the economy is weak and dependent on the United States because of the Liberals and Mark Carney's terrible policies. Carney promised in the last election that he would reverse everything he had said and his party had done in the prior decade. But now we're in the second year of his term, and what has really changed in your life? I mean, there's been lots of PR and speeches and smiley-faced signing ceremonies, but I mean, what has changed for you on the ground? You're paying record-high prices for gas. Now, before we hear all the excuses about the war in the Middle East, remember, when Prime Minister Harper was in office in 2014, there were two wars in the Middle East, in Iraq and Syria, and there was a war in Ukraine, in Crimea. The oil price was $100 a barrel. And what were gas prices then? About $1.35 a liter, 50 cents cheaper than they are nationwide in Canada today. And today, Americans pay 13% less at the pumps in equivalent terms than do Canadians. So sure, there's been a temporary increase in the oil price as a result of the war, but that does not explain why gas prices are 50 cents a liter higher today than they were when oil prices were the same a decade ago, nor does it explain why we're paying 13% more in Canada under Carney than the Americans are south of the border. The reason is because Carney's disastrous economic policies, which block development and resources, which tax work, and which inflate the cost of living, have given us the worst dollar, 72 cents. A weak dollar means we have less buying power for internationally priced commodities like oil and gas, like foodstuffs. So we're paying more for the weak Carney dollar. We're also paying taxes, more taxes at the pumps. Carney didn't get rid of the carbon tax as he promised. He renamed it, calling it the Clean Fuel Standard. But it's just another name for a Liberal tax that adds another 7 cents a liter. And of course, his government is making even more profit off high prices by collecting GST. Conservatives have said, let's get rid of all taxes for all the year at the pump so that we can bring down the price by 25 cents a liter, $20 a fill up, and $1,200 between now and the end of the year. Higher grocery prices, as Carney has given us the worst grocery price inflation in the G7, with industrial carbon taxes on farm equipment, fertilizer, and food processing, new ridiculous anti-plastic regulations that make food spoil earlier, and inflationary deficits. Mothers are forced to turn back goods at the checkout because their bank account is empty before their grocery carts are. Kids, a quarter of kids go to school hungry after 11 years of Liberal government. And, in fact, this just out, a big breaking story in British Columbia. The United Way did a poll that found that over a third of British Columbians, 35%, have had to change their diets to avoid foods that have become more expensive. 23%, roughly a quarter, said they or a member of their household had to reduce the size of their meals over the past months because they can't afford to eat. A third are stressed that they are more stressed than they were 2 years ago about the cost of groceries, and so that shows that it's worse today than when Carney took office. A third of people say that they're worse off under Carney than they were even under the disastrous Justin Trudeau. And now, when people get home from the grocery store with their bank accounts empty, stressed out from the 2 or 3 jobs they have to do, they get taxed again. If they want to have a drink, Carney's raised the excise tax on beer, liquor, and wine. And if they turn on their Netflix to watch, well, what did we learn this week? The Liberal-appointed CRTC wants to increase taxes on your streaming services. A 15% tax on Canadians streaming Netflix and other online services. A tax on your drink, a tax on the show that you're watching while you enjoy that drink, a tax when you get in the car in the morning to drive to work, a tax on your paycheck. Everywhere you turn, Mark Carney is in your pocket. Conservatives oppose the Netflix tax, and we call on the Carney Liberals to reverse their tax increase and let Canadians enjoy their streaming in peace and affordability. But the reality is that nothing will change under Mark Carney, despite the illusions. It's more tax, more cost, more debt, more of the same. Mark Carney is just another Liberal. And Canadians see it with fleeing investment, jobs, and opportunity. Carney said that he was going to approve resource projects, yet he's kept every single anti-development law in place, C-69, the anti-pipeline law, C-48, the ban on shipping oil off our west coast, the industrial carbon tax, which he announced is going to go up 6 times higher under his plan than it was even under Trudeau. And while there have been many smiley face signing ceremonies for meaningless and unenforceable documents, he's also blocking 500 economic projects that are awaiting federal approvals. He should stop doing photo ops and signing ceremonies and get back to his desk and find a way to stop blocking 500 projects. And now we learn 14 leave-it-in-the-ground Liberal MPs have written a secret letter to Mark Carney telling him to continue blocking resources and raising taxes on Canadian industry. 14 Liberal MPs say the taxes are not even high enough. Now, in fairness to these MPs, I think they all assumed that Mark Carney meant what he wrote in his book Values, where he said that we had to leave half our oil in the ground and broaden and have bigger carbon taxes or the world would burn. That was what Carney wrote in his book Values. Now he's trying to pretend he believes otherwise, and his Liberal MPs are confused about what Mark Carney thinks. They can't even keep track of all the illusions. More division in Liberal ranks as Mark Carney says one thing to his leave-it-in-the-ground Liberal caucus and the opposite to the Canadian people. Not to mention, the Prime Minister stands to benefit from many of the anti-development, anti-oil and gas policies that he has promoted. Just the other day, he gave a speech here in the Vancouver area where he pushed for taxpayer subsidies for heat pumps. What do you know? Brookfield invests in heat pumps. You know, every time Mark Carney talks about giving another handout to corporate insiders, it profits him. His company, Brookfield, is the single biggest tax dodger in Canada, and so he benefits from that as well. It always seems that Liberal insiders and corporate power brokers benefit from Liberal policies and not ordinary hardworking Canadians. Look, 112,000 of Canadians have lost their jobs this year alone. Our unemployment is now a third higher than in the United States, the second highest in the G7. Our streets are overrun by crime and drugs as Carney keeps all of Trudeau's catch and release laws. And to be clear, Mark Carney has made plenty of announcements on crime. But guess what, Mark Carney? The criminals are not afraid of your announcements. They laugh at your announcements because they know it's all an illusion. Mark Carney, you have not changed a single word in the criminal code in the more than a year you've been in office, despite your promises and your endless announcements. You've kept every single law that Trudeau passed, and now Canadians are paying the price. The Carney Liberals voted against one law after another that would have changed things. For example, right now, they are actually threatening to make it worse. Newly published guidelines allow convicted criminals who have sentences of over 10 years to delay their deportation hearings and remain in Canada. That's right, the Liberal-dominated IRB. Just read the Globe and Mail today because of a story broken by Michelle Rempel, our shadow minister of immigration. They're allowing people who've been convicted of violent assault, murder, rape, and others who are not citizens that are visiting our country stay even longer, so that the streets will be even more dangerous than they are right now. Thank God that Michelle Rempel and the Conservatives are fighting back. We don't need to let foreign criminals remain in Canada. We need a government that will enforce the law already on the books and deport visitors convicted of serious crimes. Extortionists are shooting up businesses like the one behind me. Gangsters are threatening people who worked hard, followed the law, and built something in this country. Transnational repression continues to threaten Punjabi communities across the country. And after more than a decade of Liberal catch-and-release justice, all of this remains in place. The criminals know what you should all know, that Liberals lowered penalties and weakened bail. They know that Liberals removed mandatory prison time for serious violent crimes like drug trafficking, robbery with a gun, and extortion with a gun. The criminals know that Carney's kept all of Trudeau's policies, and the criminals know nothing will change as long as Liberals are in place. Violent crime is up 55%, homicides up, sexual assaults up, extortions way up. Here in BC, violent crime is up 50%, sexual assaults 95%, extortions 481% across the province. And of course, here in Surrey, in 1 year alone, 1 year of Mark Carney, we've had a 2,400% increase in extortions. We are standing outside of Nirwan Flooring, a business that was targeted by extortionists just 2 months ago. The week before, gunfire hit another business in the same complex. Yesterday, I did an interview at a local radio station where there are literally bullet holes in the studio. And then, not only that, a week and a half ago, upstairs in the same building, a young man was shot to death in an unrelated crime. There have been 3 fatal shootings in the Lower Mainland in less than a week. We've seen a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old killed. Mark Carney, this is an extortion crisis, and your laws, your Liberal laws, are responsible for it. It's time for you to pull your head out of the sand, reverse your laws, and lock up the criminals, kick out the terrorist visitors, and restore safety to the streets of Surrey and the Lower Mainland. This is not normal. Liberals have created this crisis with Bill C-5, which allows house arrest and lower penalties for extortion with a gun. They brought in Liberal bail, C-75, which requires police and judges release newly arrested criminals at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. In other words, Liberals have made it easier for criminals to get out of jail and harder for police to arrest them. Mark Carney has kept all of these laws in place, and he's making the laws even worse. Now he's introduced Liberal Bill C-16, which, if passed, would allow a get out of jail free card. Bill C-16 allows judges to exempt serious criminals from mandatory prison time if they feel like it. That means a criminal convicted of extortion with a restricted or prohibited firearm will not face the full force of the law, because a judge will be allowed to exempt that extortionist from mandatory prison sentences under this new Carney Liberal bill. So this is not justice. This is not public safety. This is more crime, more chaos, more of the same. Carney is just another Liberal. Last August, I came to Surrey to announce a Conservative plan to crack down on extortion. I asked the Liberals, in the spirit of nonpartisanship, to steal my plan. They didn't. 9 months have gone by, and Mark Carney has done nothing other than hand out bagels and donuts on the beach in White Rock. So today I'm calling on Mark Carney and the Liberals to take 4 immediate actions to protect our people and take back our streets. First, end the get-out-of-jail-free card for violent criminals, including extortionists with illegal guns. That is embedded in C-16, so that we can lock up criminals for real and for good. Second, impose mandatory prison sentences of 10 years for all extortion offenses when it involves a crime or a gun. If you threaten, terrorize, or extort innocent people, you should go to jail for a decade, and it should be mandatory. If you do it with a gun or a gang, you should go for even longer. Third, immediately find and deport every serious criminal, terrorist, and gang member, including Bishnoi gangsters, still in Canada. After relentless conservative pressure, the Liberals finally listed the Bishnoi gang, but they have not expelled the Bishnoi gangsters. We need the police to have the powers to kick them all out. And I stand with Michelle Rempel-Garner in her calls to Mark Carney's Liberals that they should clearly direct government officials, including the IRB, to enforce consequences set out in law to deport non-citizens convicted of serious crimes in Canada, not keep them here longer. And let me be clear, Mark Carney should order the IRB to reverse this policy that allows criminals to stay in Canada when they're visiting and they've been convicted of serious offenses. And if the IRB will not do it, then every member of the IRB should be fired. We need to kick these criminals out of our country and make our lives safe, and we can't have a bunch of Liberal-appointed government officials overriding what the people want and the safety of our community. Either they kick the criminals out or they should be fired from their jobs. Fourth, pass the stand on guard principle. Self-defense is a right that all Canadians should have. If someone comes into your home, you should be allowed to use any force you believe necessary, including lethal force, to stop them, and the law should clearly indicate that you are acting within your right when you do that. And to the criminals who consider burglarizing a home, if you don't want to be harmed, then don't burglarize a home. It's a very simple solution to avoid getting hurt. Don't burglarize homes. If you do, the homeowner should have the right to take you out. Amend Section 34 of the Criminal Code so that force is presumed to be justified and allowed when used against an illegal intruder. Canadians should not have to wonder whether justice will punish them for defending their homes, their family, or their property from a criminal who broke in. Mark Carney's been talking tough, but when it comes to action, it's all an illusion. He sides with the same Liberal policies that favor criminals. His Liberals voted against C-381, which should have restored mandatory prison sentences for extortion. They voted against Conservative Bill C-220, which would have stopped judges from using immigration status to reduce criminal sentences. They voted against Conservative Bill C-246, which would have required criminals convicted of multiple sexual offenses to serve consecutive sentences. Mark Carney tells you everything is all right, yet you know that is not true. The Liberals stand with criminals while Conservatives stand with law-abiding citizens. Conservatives put violent criminals behind bars. Liberals create the catch-and-release chaos you see. Liberals cannot be counted on to bring safety. Conservatives, only Conservatives, will fight for safe streets to restore the promise of this country, that hard work gets you a beautiful life, a safe street to live on, a home that you own with property that is protected. That is the Conservative way. That is the Canadian promise. Let's make it happen. Keep the fight alive. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from reporters. Please identify yourself and your outlet. One question each.
Oh, sure. That would make a little splash. Thank you.
I'm Prateek Singh Mahat from Red FM. We are talking about the extortion. You're saying you have scaled out some of the precautionary measures we can take. But most of the suspects who have been arrested so far, they are first-time offenders. Even recently, a suspect arrested in the shootings in last year, December. He carried out 3 extortion-related crimes, including 2 shootings in just 4 days. But those all 3 crimes were his first-time offenses. But so far, police has failed to arrest any of the organized criminal or organized gang to link them with all these shootings and extortions. So basically, they are arresting people, deporting them back. But this extortion threat is not stopping.
Well, you said that a lot of the offenders are first-time offenders. I don't care. They should get mandatory prison sentences of 10 years. Put them in jail for 10 years, and I bet a lot of them will be too frightened to actually commit the extortion in the first place. Secondly, we need to kick the terrorists, the transnational repressors, the extortionists, the gangsters out of our country. When they're here, they don't have a permanent residency or citizenship. They're visiting here, they commit a crime, they should immediately and automatically be deported without exception and without delay. And the government needs to direct the IRB to do that. If the IRB won't do it, then the members of the IRB should be fired. and replaced with people who will enforce our laws and kick the criminals out. And what else did you have? You wanted me to address, sir?
Don't you think that this is a deeper problem when we see the suspects and those gangs operating them? There has been recent killings as well linked to the Bishnoi gang. There is talks about the Cricket Canada and other things. But don't you think it's a deeper problem which has not been addressed by the federal government or the police for right till now?
Yes, I mean, I think transnational repression is a real problem that Liberals have unleashed. The Liberals let the Bishnoi gangsters into Canada. They have refused to deport them from Canada. They have failed to crack down on organized crime that is running rampant, money laundering. British Columbia is one of the money laundering capitals of the world now because of weak Liberal law enforcement. Yes, I think it is a much bigger problem, but you will not get it fixed as long as the Carney Liberals are in power. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Poilievre. My name is Parmeet from Omni News. My question to you is, as you have called for harsher penalties, but convictions in extortion cases remain relatively rare. Isn't the bigger issue right now is low solve rate rather than sentencing? Your comment.
Well, I think it's both. I mean, part of the reason why you can't solve crimes in Canada is because the criminals are released, those who are convicted, those who are arrested are released, and then they just reoffend again and again and again. And the police are, as a result, are overwhelmed, chasing down so many crimes that it's mathematically almost impossible to keep up. But that is largely the result of the Carney Liberals keeping in their laws on books that allow these criminals to go free. And there is other problem is that our police resources are being wasted on this gun grab, going after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested firearms owners who are following the rules, and then they don't have the resources to go after the real criminals, like the extortionist that shot the building right behind me today. My message is to British Columbians, you don't have to live like this. You no longer have to accept the chaos that Carney Liberals have imposed on you. We as Conservatives have a real plan to lock up the criminals, to deport the visiting gangsters and terrorists, and to enforce the law.
We have seen deportations, not the actual sentencing. And comment on that. And do you believe foreign governments are doing enough to cooperate with Canada on extortion or other gang activity targeting Canadians?
No, I don't think they are. But I mean, this again is a new problem that the Liberals have brought. We didn't have foreign governments interfering in our country before. We didn't have transnational repression or assassinations. We didn't have Chinese police stations in our communities. The Liberals have made Canada a playground for foreign interference and international gangsterism. And Mark Carney has been a prime minister for a year now, and it's only getting worse with extortions up 2,400% on his watch here in Surrey. So we need a government that will actually defend Canada against foreign interference, shut down these crime syndicates, kick out the criminals who are visiting, and lock up the ones who are citizens. Thank you.
Hi there, Tanya Fletcher from CBC. So if you could also answer in French for my colleagues, that would be appreciated. Regarding Alberta's referendum, what are you willing to do to work with the government to make sure the country stays united? And is there something you think the Prime Minister should do to make the case that Alberta belongs in Canada?
Thank you for your question. Conservatives love Canada. I love Canada. We're going to fight for a united Canada every day in every way. We're going to reach out to Albertans in every corner of the province to make the case for our wonderful country. And we're going to do it through hope. We want Albertans to understand that they can have an even better future in our country, a country where their resources are unblocked, where their legitimate property, including their firearms, are respected, where their streets are once again safe with criminals locked up, where free enterprise allows them to start businesses and achieve great things, where their provincial government has all of the same powers that the Quebec government has, so that Albertans can feel that they are in charge of their own destiny within Canada. That's the hopeful, optimistic vision that we have for a stronger Alberta within a united Canada. Merci beaucoup. Les conservateurs vont travailler pour unir les Canadiens. On va aller à travers la province de l'Alberta pour partager une vision de l'espoir, une vision qui débloque leurs ressources naturelles, leur permettant de devenir l'endroit le plus riche au monde, de libérer l'économie pour que les entrepreneurs puissent grandir et engager plus de monde, où les jeunes puissent acheter une maison et fonder une famille, où les criminels sont en prison, mais les chasseurs, les fermiers, les tireurs sportifs peuvent garder leurs armes d'épaule, où la province de l'Alberta, comme le Québec, aura plus d'autonomie pour pouvoir maîtriser leur propre domaine et prendre leurs propres décisions. Ça, c'est une vision de l'espoir qui vise un Alberta plus fort au sein d'un Canada uni. Et honnêtement, vous pouvez remplacer le mot Alberta avec le Québec parce que je veux toutes les mêmes opportunités pour les Québécois et je vais prendre exactement la même stratégie envers les Québécois que je prends avec les Albertains pour leur remplir avec l'espoir pour notre pays. Et aussi, on a besoin d'un leadership qui dit la même chose en français qu'en anglais pour unir le Canada à travers le pays. I should just once again point out, though, how wonderful it was 11 years ago when there were no separatists whatsoever in Alberta, where the Parti Québécois and Bloc Québécois were wiped off the electoral map, and we were a truly united country under the leadership of Prime Minister Harper. He understood that it's the job of the Prime Minister to unite the country, and that if the country is not united, that too is the responsibility of the Prime Minister. We really should look at the situation in both Quebec and Alberta and ask ourselves how the Prime Minister is doing when it comes to national unity. Donc, je peux répéter ça en français aussi, si vous voulez aussi. Je veux juste souligner encore, avec beaucoup de fierté, jusqu'à quel point le pays a été très uni il y a 11 ans, dans les années Harper. Il n'y avait pas de séparation de séparatistes dans l'Alberta. Il n'y avait pas de référendum dans n'importe quelle province. Le Parti québécois et le Bloc québécois disparaissaient parce qu'il n'y avait même pas une volonté, un intérêt au Québec pour la souveraineté. On était vraiment unis comme un pays. 11 ans plus tard, on a les séparatistes qui mènent dans les sondages au Québec. Et en Alberta, on fait face maintenant à un référendum après 11 ans des libéraux et on est dans la deuxième année de M. Carney. Il faut se poser la question, comment est-ce qu'il fait vraiment pour unir le pays, ce qui est la responsabilité principale d'un premier ministre.
Bonjour, merci d'avoir répondu en français.
Merci.
Oui, Dinette Paul, journaliste à Radio-Canada. Ma question est la suivante. Trouvez-vous que le gouvernement Carney en fait trop pour essayer de calmer les menaces séparatistes en Alberta? Encore une fois, en français et en anglais, s'il vous plaît.
Tout d'abord, je viens de dire, je peux répéter ce que je viens de dire. La responsabilité principale d'un premier ministre, c'est d'unir les Canadiens. Et je remarque que M. Harper a fait un très bon travail là-dessus. Il n'y avait pas un mouvement séparatiste en Alberta. Le PQ et le BQ, les deux partis séparatistes au Québec, avaient disparu. Il y avait un pays uni. Mais après 11 ans des libéraux, on voit maintenant que, selon certains sondages, le Parti québécois, un parti ouvertement souverainiste consacré à un autre référendum, mène et peut peut-être gagner. Et en Alberta, on fait face maintenant à un référendum. Donc, il faut se poser la question. Est-ce que le premier ministre a uni notre pays selon les résultats que je viens de mentionner?
Thank you. This concludes today's press conference.
Sorry.
Est-ce que la menace d'un référendum est la bonne manière, selon vous, de faire des gains avec Ottawa?
Moi, je crois qu'on devrait unir le pays. Pourquoi pas donner les gains à toutes les provinces déjà? Pourquoi pas débloquer les ressources de l'Alberta? Pourquoi pas éliminer la taxe industrielle de carbone? Pourquoi pas mettre des criminels en prison et respecter les armes à feu des fermiers, des chasseurs et des tireurs sportifs dans les régions de l'Alberta ou de n'importe quelle province sans devoir faire face à une menace à la unité nationale? On devrait faire des gains pour tous les Canadiens, peu importe s'il y a des référendums. C'est comme ça qu'on devrait penser comment est-ce qu'on peut unir le pays en rendant le pays plus abordable, plus sécuritaire et en donnant plus d'autonomie aux individus et aux provinces. C'est comme ça qu'on va vraiment unir le Canada à travers le Canada avec une vision positive, une vision conservatrice qu'on va vendre pendant l'été et jusqu'aux prochaines élections. All right?
Thank you
I think
very
that's
much.
it. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thanks. Well done. Thank you.
好啦，啱啱我哋就聽完咗呢個 Poilievre 嘅記者會啦。咁其實頭嘅10分鐘到啊，其實大致上 Poilievre 都係講緊一啲批評翻 Mark Carney 而家嘅一啲事情啦。咁但係其實佢後來都有提及到嘅，即係講翻關於佢而家企個位置咧，就係2次槍擊案嘅一個地方啦。佢自己亦都去到 Surrey 一個電台，亦都係有。發覺嗰度係有呢個嘅玻璃嘅子彈窿啦，亦都有人喺樓上俾人射低咗啦咁樣。即係其實你見到即係個情況真係好嚴重啊，Sam。
我諗其實由舊年大選開始啦，即係一路我睇兩黨嘅 platform 咧，如果對於呢一個犯罪率啊、保安啊、即係安全問題啊，又或者呢啲違規逗留喺加拿大而從而發生好多犯罪嘅情況，其實呢方面就不嬲保守黨就企得硬啲嘅。咁頭先你都聽到佢有提過話呢個 B16嘅法案啦，若然萬一即係你而家自由黨佢哋有大多數啦，佢要修訂啦，有冇機會即係有啲案例特別係其中有幾條條文，如果你係會個判罰比最低刑期仲要低嘅，會唔會其實反而令人感覺就係你越嚟越軟弱咧？呢個亦都係保守黨一路以嚟都係打住即係自由黨嗰個喺個治安犯罪個問題，咁所以亦都明白佢點解今日揀 Surrey 啦。咁因為其實 Surrey 咧頭先都有講啦，即係無論 money laundering 啊、gangster 啊，又或者即係一啲槍擊案啊等等，甚至加拿大同印度之間嘅關係變差，都係源自於喺 Surrey 呢度發生。咁所以佢選擇喺呢一度發言啦。咁不過就講真，即係譬如頭先佢都有提過 IRB 嘅，即係講到 IRB 話，如果即係佢哋做得唔好啊，要炒啊咁樣。不過問題我諗喺加拿大最大問題咧就係 IRB 唔係一個獨立部門可以話做到好多嘢，而係你要牽涉到掂到頭先 Poilievre 講嘅理念嘅話咧。我諗你係要 IRCC、CBSA 同 IRB 3個機構要一齊協調同改革，先可以做到有一個有效嘅聯防啦，即係可以話喺一個罪案入邊嘅，或者係一啲非加拿大人嘅罪案。但係呢個改革其實唔係咁容易嘅，即係等於我見到 YouTube 都有留言話，你又係嗰啲 blah 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 啦，講咗先啦咁樣，即係你又做到啲咩咧咁樣。咁但係我又覺得即係作為反對黨嘅話，即係尤其是而家係比較冇力啦，即係唔係一個有力嘅反對黨啦。即係我覺得都要講出嚟提示下大家去思考嘅。即係我又覺得喺呢個環境上邊，咁啊即係我自己睇兩黨嘅相對地佢哋嗰個保安啊各樣嘢啊等等，都即係治安問題等等，都係比較保守黨係企得硬淨啲嘅。咁啊，不過有趣，頭先都有人問呢一個亞省分離嘅問題啦。其實你都對於博勵治嚟講，都係一個尷尬嘅位置嚟嘅。即係雖然佢第一句就話好多謝你問問題，咁但其實就係而家我諗呢個燙手山芋咧，其實調轉你問 Mark Carney，其實佢都未必好識答你。不過就即係你喺反對黨就始終唔需要講一個實際方法嘅時候，就可以大框架講到，即係梗係話大家共同利益啊，大家一齊諗啊，大家都係加拿大人啊等等咁呢啲都呢個記者會其實我覺得係一個 statement 啦，即係叫做話俾大家聽保守黨嗰個理念嚟緊係點咧，亦都會嚟緊推行一啲即係會點樣一啲嘅法案喺擺喺議會度繼續嘗試爭取咧。但我諗都其實見佢今日嗰個狀態都唔算話 氣勢好強，即係同舊年係好唔同嘅。
我覺得有少少攰啊，可能。同埋頭先佢講嗰4個 point 咧，即係話C16下面話即係唔俾保釋啊，10年嘅刑期啊，要驅逐一啲嚟自南亞嘅一啲嘅黑幫啊 ，Business Gang 其實已經加拿大定性為恐怖組織㗎啦。最後亦都係增加呢一個大家可以自我防衛嘅一個咁樣嘅條文啦。其實呢，我哋即係通識嗰度咧，我哋都有講過，舊年咧呢個嘅參選嗰陣咧，亦都阿 Poilievre 已經成日講㗎啦。咁所以你話係咪新嘢咧？其實就唔係嘅。但係咧，即係喺呢一年嘅時候，Mark Carney 強調要請到1000個嘅 RCMP officer 啦。咁但係我哋喺審計總長嗰份報告入邊都睇過啦。即係到底警察要用幾耐去請一個警察咧？答案係超過1年嘅。咁所以都唔知道可以點樣去做嘅，亦都係唔知點樣去改進。咁原來個問題 stuck 咗喺請警察嗰個 HR 都請唔到。OK， 即係你見到我哋喺住交通識又分析過好多啦。所以其實你見到而家呢一個嘅勒索嘅問題咧，係一個結果嚟嘅，即係係一大堆唔同部門之間。如果你話齋查 ILB 係冇用，其實佢淨係處理難民啫嘛。咁點解有難民呢？因為移民部啊嘛。咁移民部應該要點樣做呢？咁所以其實即係我覺得今日學阿 Sam 你話齋，其實都係一個有少少重複翻嘅。只不過我覺得佢揀個地點呢係揀得幾好咯，
幾有意義。即係亦都明白點解如果你要針對治安問題，唔係全國冇，唔係多倫多唔嚴重，而係 Surrey， 我諗係牽涉最複雜嘅一個地區。而必須要即係喺呢一度作為一個 address 一個即係要去指明一個 statement 啦。因為頭先阿文西都講得好啱，即係你就算 IRB 其實同 RCMP 嘅情況都一樣。你就算話請多啲人，你係咪一埋嚟即食先？即係你埋嚟仲要好長時間嘅訓練啦，再加上 IRB 其實本身你牽涉嘅最大問題唔係話淨係要快，因為你一快有機會變咗橡皮圖章亂咁吸。即係亂咁審，因為你入邊可能牽涉難民，你會牽涉就係生命安全啊，會唔會有啲咩政治迫害啊？如果佢報自己有，你又要查啊，咁如果你錯判個代價其實都幾大嘅，同埋你個改革你都幾尷尬嘅一個，你就係會牽涉好多唔同族裔，你有唔同語言啊。咁另外頭先文西都點咗一個就係話，其實你無論IR 你後邊點樣執法都好啦。你前邊有冇減少錯誤輸入呢個情況先？即係呢個其實反而我覺得頭先佢都唔算好大力打嘅，有輕輕提過1-2句，但係你就更加要大力打就係、是、佢雖然都 keep 住講噶啦，Mark Carney 其實都係 liberal， 即係佢都好想提翻大家就係話其實係同一個黨派嚟嘅，你唔好諗住你而家新人上場就將你以前嘅蘇州市就跟住之後就順手唔理，咁因為其實 IRCC 喺2023年啦，我諗入咗真係好多你譬如身份資料錯啊、文件唔正確啊，你但係又亂咁批啊，甚至乎你而家 IRCC 揾翻你自己嘅內部文件，你揾唔揾得翻嗰啲人呢？啲地址人哋有冇更新呢？你代表律師嘅資料又清唔清楚呢？即係你其實如果 IRCC 你做唔到嗰個申請入口嗰個標準化，你亂咁嚟。其實都有機會係令到後邊係好難執法嘅，即係當然啦，我哋有 AI 部長噶嘛 ，AI 其實就某程度上係可以梳理一啲嘢嘅，咁但係我哋都喺住家通識入邊講過啦，即係 AI 部長究竟上任1年做過啲咩咧？咁其實都唔覺有啲乜嘢做過嘅。咁當然就係話你如果一個咁大量嘅申請同咁大量嘅 backlog， 你嘅人手亦都已經喺政府規模入邊超過1萬人，都唔好講話。我早2日大家早晨講話入邊有嘅職員嘅嗰啲用人唯才啊，嗰啲咁嘅貪污包庇嗰啲嘢啦，即係嗰啲當你小部分，但係你都真係有成過萬個員工，點解你都做唔到？再加埋 AI。都做唔到一啲把關嘅動作咧，其實即係我諗最主要係加拿大而家見到嘅犯罪率唔係今日先出現嘅，即係個因喺邊度咧？個因就係、是、你 IRCC 你放人放得唔好，第二你本土嘅經濟越嚟越差， 引致到第三就係點解要提到 C16法案，就係如果當你有呢啲咁嘅罪行嘅時候，當然 C16入邊好複雜嘅，即係當然又有一啲性別上嘅寬鬆啊，或者嗰啲唔同嘅判刑方式啊，譬如女性謀殺案就可能會分類變成一定係一級謀殺啊等等呢啲咧。其實如果你對於仲喺度拗呢啲嘢，而唔係話即係自亂世用翻個較為重點啫，即係嗱唔係要你有死刑，唔係成，但你過分寬鬆，你呢頭捉嗰頭放，又或者呢頭判完，啱啱我記得喺卑詩省都試過有一單嘢，就係一個性侵嘅一個男子，咁坐咗4年監嘅，係啦，即係侵犯兒童坐咗4年監，中之後再俾人，咁當然佢俾人拉，佢走去圖書館嗰啲兒童色情網站。咁啊，俾人 track 到佢，咁啊即刻拉。即係但係就係話，你無論喺個懲罰機制上邊，你有冇足夠嘅量刑起點，令人哋真係有機會可以改過自身啊？又或者你判刑之後入到去，有冇一啲輔導俾佢啊？淨係純粹你韞住佢咧？你純粹韞住佢啊，又會唔會令到監獄有人唔滿之患咧？即係呢幾個大方向咧，其實如果冇一個實際嘅改革方法嘅話咧，其實都係紙上談兵嚟嘅，對我嚟講。即係當然啦，保守黨可以做嘅嘢好有限。問題我就係覺得你永遠一個民主政制嘅國家，點都需要有反對黨喺度，將一啲見到嘅問題講出嚟。講完出嚟之後，係咪即刻做到？好老實講，呢個國家速度絕對唔快嘅。咁所以其實喺咁嘅情況下，就我諗。今個記者會叫做俾大家理解一下啦。咁我而家我哋今次首次直播
係啦。咁啊
，Poilievre嘅記者會嚟嘅。咁啊，即係我哋似乎有啲，我哋似乎有啲叻㗎。唔緊要，點啊？我係啦係。喂，唔緊要嘅。咁呢度就完咗啦。其實糾正你啦，琴日係第一次啊。其實係保守黨。咁啊，因為你冇參與啫，即係你有參與嘅直播就今日係第一次啦。你冇收咁啊，四間難跟啊，唔係嘅自由黨 NDP 揾我哋都可以去做嘅咁，但係只不過好啦，咁啊個就冇人揾我哋做。係啦，係啦，都一樣會做嘅，咁所以即係